Okay, wonderful. So with that, I just want to thank everyone who is joining us live or who is joining and watching the recording of this presentation on blended learning platforms for farmer organizations at ICTforAg 2024, with the theme being localizing impact. With that, I want to pass it to Camilla to introduce herself, and then we'll go down the list of our presenting group.
Hello, everyone. And I would just like to clarify that I'm not the director in the sense of like president or CEO of NCBA CLUSA. I'm just the director of one of our 3 areas of expertise. It's called Strengthening Cooperatives and Producer Organizations. I know it's a very long name, but yeah, this is me. And thank you for the invitation to be in this session.
Hello, my name is Amy Warren. I'm an instructional designer and the digital lead for IFC's Agribusiness Leadership Program. And I've been with the ALP since we launched it in 2016.
Thank you, Kishi. My name is Peter Ndwati, founder and CEO of ATL, Africa Turnaround Limited, a tech-powered BDS firm based in Nairobi, but working in the larger African region. I am very happy to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks everyone. And I'm Casey Harrison. I'm the Chief Sustainability Officer at Nuru, which is a collective of locally led NGOs that work with farmer organizations in Kenya, Ethiopia, Nigeria, Burkina Faso, and now Ghana. And we've worked in partnership with each of my fellow panelists through the Agribusiness Market Ecosystem Alliance. And that's where a lot of the shared innovation and thought that you're going to hear about today on blended learning has come from, but a lot of the investment and time has been made by each of these individual organizations and entities to generate this content. So I'm really excited for everyone to have a chance to hear from Peter, Camilla, and Amy on their specific blended learning platform topics and case studies. As a bit of an agenda check-in, which we'll move quickly, just so you're all aware of how we're going to flow through the hour, I'll do a quick introduction to AMEA for those who haven't heard of the network before, and a session overview. We'll pass it over to Amy to talk about IFC's blended learning through the ALP program. Peter will talk about the UTI platform from Africa Turnaround. Camilla will talk about the Wheel Co-op TOT digital blended guide and approach. And then we'll have a facilitated discussion with the panelists, and we'll open it up to Q&A with the audience. You can also ask questions throughout in the chat, and we'll be monitoring those. You can also feel free to introduce yourself in the chat if you'd like. We'd be happy to get to know you. But if you do feel, we're open to verbal kind of discussion at the end where we have time. So very quickly over the next minute or two, AMEA is a network of organizations, 35 plus member partner organizations that have a shared interest in farmer organization, business development services, and the provision of standardized curriculum and assessment tools that help to spur growth in the farmer organization and agri-SME sector. So this is a shared vision, mission, and approach of this membership, and it's a network-based approach that AMEA represents. So that's what you're hearing from today, is a group of AMEA members who work on blended approaches to business development services and agribusiness training. The membership is quite vast, as is noted by this slide. You can see various members from across Europe, the United States, as well as there's local networks embedded within the AMEA network across numerous countries right now. And part of that effort is to standardize and mainstream the International Working Agreement 29, which is global guidelines for professional farm organizations that helps create a common language that each member organization, as well as national governments, can utilize to help inform their policy development around farmer organization, cooperative agribusiness development and service provision. So we wanted to take this chance just to introduce AMEA, some of the work that's being done by the network, and how it connects to this blended learning topic, which is related to the ICTforAg main themes today: localization, inclusion, inspiration, and innovation. I won't read these slides to you specifically, but the point is we're sharing 3 case studies from across East Africa and Latin America, work that's been done by these by these organizations represented by Amy, Camilla, and Peter. That really we want to share these learnings with you, some of the opportunities, some of the constraints to delivering blended digital and in-person training to farmers and farmer organizations, and have a real conversation about how there can be further collaboration, limiting redundancy of effort, increasing efficiency and supporting farmers and farmer organization development around the world, and really hear some of your thoughts as well. So with that introduction, I'm going to pass it over to the case study presenters. I'm going to quickly pause the share screen on my side and pass it over to Amy Warren so that she can share her slides. So I'm going to stop share now, and I will mute myself and give it to you, Amy. Thank you.
Thank you, Casey. Can you see my screen? Someone from our
Yes, we
team?
can.
Okay, great. Great. Thanks, Casey. So today I'm going to be talking about blended learning through IFC's Agribusiness Leadership Program, and specifically how we've worked with AMEA members like NURU and Africa Turnaround to reach remote farmers, smallholder farmers, and farmer organizations in rural areas and even areas that don't have great internet access or even no internet access. Some of you might already be familiar with the Agribusiness Leadership Program. For those who aren't, just a brief context. We launched it in 2016. It is a capacity building program. And the catalyst was really that IFC wanted to create a program to help agribusiness clients build more sustainable, more reliable supply chains that are based on smallholder farmers. And when we did launch it 8 years ago, at that time it was all in person, right? It was in-person assessment, in-person training, in-person coaching for these small businesses and farmer organizations. Well, as we know, all of that changed in 2020. And since the pandemic, we have had to take a blended learning approach. Now, around the time of the pandemic, we basically had to eliminate all in-person training and coaching. And in the years, since we've gone back to this blended learning, or we've kind of moved to this blended learning model, where we try to combine, where possible, the in-person training and coaching with opportunities for digital learning. I want to say a little bit about the digital content that we have to support blended learning. Now, I should say blended learning is the combination of in-person learning with training and coaching with offline or digital activities. So my focus here is the digital part of that. And we've put a lot of effort. So IFC with the ALP team and our AMEA partners have put a lot of effort into creating digital content that can support blended learning for farmer organizations. Let me introduce you to a little bit of that. We recently launched 8 digital learning paths. Now, some of these, as you can see, are for specific groups like fundamentals of cooperatives, producer organization essentials, right? Are for those organized farmer groups. We have fundamentals of retail management for your small agri-retailers and last mile retailers. And then others like growing your business sustainability, internal management are more generic and can be used by a range of small agribusinesses. Now, right now, we use a platform called Microsoft Community Training, MCT, to access these learning paths. You can access MCT through a computer, through a tablet, through a smartphone. If you're using a smartphone, it's through a web app, and that's the interface you see here. Some screenshots from the mobile app. We are working to make this available in other ways, right? And not having to depend on MCT. We're in talks right now with a learning management system that's much more about offline, like making learning content available offline. And our AMEA partners, right, like NURU and Africa Turnaround, have been critical to helping us test different ways to make this content available offline. Here are some examples of the kind of content we have in our learning paths. The content is kind of like small micro learning chunks, right? Like a lesson could be an animated video, an expert video, it might be an infographic. It could be a downloadable template or an example, like here we have a sample cooperative agenda, slides and PDFs, many of which are interactive, and then also interactive quizzes. Now we're also, move this away. We're also making our content available through the Open Learning Canvas. So right now, if you were to go to that website, you would find 78 courses in 18 categories. You do have to create an account, but it's free. It's available to anyone worldwide. And we found this to be quite popular. So you could find our 78 courses that cover 18 categories. This is some of our older generation e-learning content, but we're in the process now of taking all those 8 learning paths and transferring them to OLC. So that will be another option for how you can access that, and not just Microsoft Community Training. Now, I want to say a little bit about what we've learned by working with AMEA members. What have been some of the lessons that we've learned on how to design blended learning, particularly for rural, remote learners, smallholders, emerging cooperatives. And you'll hear more about these lessons later. I know Peter and Camila will talk about their own lessons. But yeah, I know some of this is, crosses all our organizations. You can and you must dismantle the barriers to access. We've seen that it's possible, right? You make it available, you make the digital learning available however you can, whether that's a tablet, which you see there on the first picture, a phone, whether a mobile phone or SMS on a feature phone, computers in small groups. And our vision for this is that it's not just the digital learning is not just accessible to those who have a smartphone, to those who are well-educated, to men. Like, we want to make sure that whoever is involved, whoever's enrolled in our projects, that the digital learning is available to everybody. And here's an example. So Nuru Kenya took some of our ALP content and adapted it to reach semi-literate and emerging cooperatives through a TVET system. And they made it available in multiple ways. And I think that's the key thing we've taken from this, like a multi-channel approach. So they have it there. I mean, they had a learning management system. You see that there in the picture on the left on a computer. They also created comics, right? You see the comic there. They created videos. They reach learners through SMS messages. So it's those multiple points that you need to look at. And the second lesson is that coaches, facilitators, and peers can help. And that's related to that first lesson. The human element shouldn't be forgotten here, even when we're talking about technology. On the left, Nuru Ethiopia, that's a trainer. The picture's it's a little hard to see, and the screen's a little small, the laptop, but the trainer has downloaded the material beforehand onto his laptop. And then he's helping this group of primary cooperative leaders work through it. They're discussing it, they're working through it, they're processing it. And that's a way, maybe it's not ideal, the screen's a bit small, but that is a way to reach learners with digital content. Then on the right, Africa Turnaround, and Peter's going to speak shortly, they gave mobile phones to everybody enrolled, or all the learners in the project. And the phones help learners access the content when and where they wanted. But at the same time, they still had these 2 in-person sessions, like the learners, like twice during the project, met with their coaches for check-ins and to provide feedback. And finally, the translation and localization takes time. You have to build it in. Now that sounds maybe this lesson sounds a little prosaic compared to some of those other ones are more like the loftier project design goals, but this we found to be absolutely key. Whatever time you think you need for translation and localization, you likely need more. Working with Nuru in translating content into Amharic and Hausa, we had to, translate it, but then get it back into our source materials, our source files. And that just proved to be more of a headache than we expected. And you also have to consider things like local dialects and whether the level of the language might be okay for a translator, but is it okay? Is the level of the language okay for learners? Now, before I pass it over to Peter, I will leave you with this. We have just recently launched our revised ALP blended learning implementation guide. If you are interested in seeing that, please send an email to the email you see there. Get in touch with me and I'll make sure you get a copy. Now, with that, I'll stop sharing my slides and pass it back to Casey and Peter.
Yeah, give me 1 second. Thanks, Amy. Peter, give me 1 second. I'll get the slides back up for you. We should be good to go. Let me get myself off mute real quick. Take it away, Peter.
Yep. Thanks, Amy. Thanks, Casey. It's been a pleasure, of course, working with you guys. Not leaving out Camila. So UTI is Swahili for backbone, because what we envision is that this platform becomes like a nerve center, like a hub where other key services would be plugged in for the entrepreneurs or enterprises who would be coming here for different needs. So that's what UTI is. But currently UTI is a blended BDS platform for BDS providers. We have ourselves been in BDS for over 15 years now, working in the region, and we went, into a digital mode or the blended mode over the last 5 years, working with partners like IFC, KCB, the biggest bank by assets in East Africa, AMEA. Agra was also involved in the KCB partnership in the beginning, as well as MasterCard. So it's been a 5-year journey, and we focus on catalyzing what we call the power of enterprise by strengthening the local BDS ecosystem using our tech-powered BDS solution. And this solution, as I said, is enabling BDS providers to offer blended solutions to their clients. And this is the solution. So the solution has 5 main components. Number 1, it has an app for learners. And then the app comes in with offline capability, meaning that learners can download content and learn without an internet connection, which is a very rare feature, but very useful, especially in places like Africa, where connectivity is not always very stable. It also comes with a dashboard for coaches, e-facilitators, as we call them, M&E staff, program managers, supervisors who would have then the capability to see what's happening. Like if you're implementing, a program with thousands of learners across a number of countries, you can see that from your dashboard. So it's quite being very effective in enabling scale in that sense. And number 3, it comes with digital courses, including the IFC accredited ALP, Agribusiness Leadership Program, which targets different users, including last mile input retailers, not just farm organizations, and the content also covers just general agribusiness management. 4, it comes with a full program for certifying e-facilitators and coaches in the whole area of blended BDS, because coming from in-person delivery does not automatically help you to thrive in a blended environment. So we found it very useful that the trainers and coaches are also able to transition and be equipped with the tools they need to operate in this environment, and therefore to optimize blended learning. And finally, tools and templates, which are hosted on the knowledge base on the platform. Those are templates that support application for both the entrepreneurs as well as the e-facilitators and coaches. So how does it work? So our role as ATL is catalytic. Number 1, we offer licensing, platform licensing to the BDS providers. And this is becoming very useful, and BDS providers are readily embracing this, because clients now are increasingly asking for blended solutions. But because of the inhibitive upfront costs or investments that are required, a lot of BDS providers are not able to transition in that sense. And then therefore, this is becoming a very useful solution, a shared platform for the ecosystem. So licensing. And then number 2, we do not require the BDS providers to make any upfront investments. So it's Uber style. We actually call ourselves Uber for BDS. It's a shared infrastructure. And we share the revenues we make together, and a lot of the work being done by the in-country local BDS providers, and then therefore they are able to retain the revenues related to that as well. Number 3, the certification program, we also make that possible, and 4, we also strengthen the BDS providers. What we are finding is that in the region, for example, outside Kenya, you'd find in a number of countries, the BDS ecosystems are not as strong as Kenya. So we are also finding ourselves having to, offer capacity, especially when it comes to the higher level of SMEs. And then also building the capacity of the trainers and the coaches. For the BDS provider, their role is in country and local. They conduct enterprise assessment, because the process is such that we assess the enterprises in terms of their capacity needs. We then based on that, they are trained based on their needs, and they are coached. So that at the very first stage of assessment, the local BDS provider is able to undertake that, and then mostly we work with Scope Insight tools. A Dutch-based partner who is very specialized in capacity assessments and systems and methodologies around that. Next, they also help with the localization and translation. For example, if we went to Ethiopia, you would need to work with the local BDS provider to help with translating the content into Amharic, finding the right professionals to help with translation. Of course, AI is also helping, but you still need human professionals to second check and to make sure that the content is humanly consumable and is perfect. Number 3, they would also be the ones, the BDS provider and their e-facilitators and coaches, they would be the one working with the learners online, but also coaching them off the platform virtually and online, whether it's phone calls on WhatsApp or whatever it is. It's their role to do that. So what we are enabling is more the digital learning component and backstopping where necessary. And then finally, digital access is becoming very critical. So the local BDS providers would be working with partners. A lot of them would be development agencies or government agencies that are enabling digital access in terms of ownership of devices or access to devices, not necessarily ownership, access to internet or learning bundles. So our local partners work with us and other local partners to be able to make that possible. So we have quickly onboarded BDS providers and partners in a number of countries: Kenya, of course, Uganda, Tanzania, and Rwanda. We actually, including today, we're in the process of onboarding Ethiopia and Nigeria, and Africa is there because ultimately our vision, our bigger vision is to make this, as I said, an Uber for BDS, and making it possible for everyone to be able to transition onto a blended mode and be able to enjoy the benefits that come with this. So an African kind of infrastructure is what we'll be looking at. So if you know BDS providers, or if you're one that are in those countries or other African countries that would benefit from this, maybe they're BDS providers you work with, we would be happy to onboard them as well. So our journey and what we have learned, I already said we've been lucky to work with a number of partners in this journey. What you see there are pictures, some of the pictures from our various projects, blended projects that we have done. And over the 5-year period, we have undertaken several projects, and some of them were pilots, others are purely consultancy projects for our clients. And the following characteristics, the following component elements characterize the kind of work we have done. So we have we have used varied learning platforms, including building our own. And I'll tell you how that went. And we have also used both web and mobile apps for learners. We have localized some courses while we have built others from scratch. Some have been just, in English, available in English, while we have localized and translated some into Swahili, for example. And we have been able to see the difference. Most of the programs have actually been blended. Actually, all of them have been blended. Sorry, just a step back. Blended, and they have combined self-paced digital learning with in-person and virtual coaching. And in the area project that we did not have trainers and coaches undergo a comprehensive certification program like we have now. And we have also conducted assessments, as I said, for most of those programs, as I said before. Yeah. So here are some 5 key lessons. As Amy has, rightly put it, digital learning works. We have seen it. Even rural folks embrace it and are excited about it. And if you'd like to get a story or two, we have stories like that available online that we can share. So there's no reason for excuse for not, taking the leap and then joining the pack. What we have seen is that inclusion raises, and when I say inclusion, is localizing, translating, making the content available in local language, native language, where possible as well. It is providing access, facilitating access to devices as well as the internet. And when you do that, what we have seen in some of the project, it raises completion rates for courses from below 50 to over 85%. So inclusion is magical in that sense. And again, I think I will not overemphasize that. Amy already said that about breaking barriers. And we have seen some clients even reallocating money that was set aside for logistics to enabling digital access and enabling their beneficiaries to go blended. Coaching is indispensable. That's what we have seen. And that's very important, so that learners are not just accessing learning, in a self-paced manner on a digital platform, but also having a BDS consultant or coach hold them and work with them, helping even build their action plans and implement them. And we have also seen that robust technology is very essential. It's an essential ingredient. And what we have learned ourselves, is an expensive lesson to just let tech be handled by techies so that we can focus on what we do best. And currently our platform is powered by an American tech partner, and we are very happy with what we have. And finally, my call to action to all of you and all of us is, let's go blended. It can be done. It will help us to achieve scale and reach people who would otherwise miss out on the opportunity. Let's invest in inclusion so that we don't leave anyone behind. And let's certify more professionals in this area, because to blend, we need e-facilitators and coaches who can support the process. And let's share more so that we can continue to push the cost lower, drive scale, and accelerate impact. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. I'm sure you'll share your contact information in the chat for everyone too, so they have it. But with that, I will pass it over to Camila to take us through her presentation.
Hello, everyone, and thanks again for the invitation. And I assume everyone can hear me well? Great. So yes, I'm here representing NCBA CLUSA. In case you don't know about this organization, is the National Cooperative Business Association, formerly known as Cooperative League of the USA. So many places in Latin America, Africa, Eastern Asia, where we have worked for close to 90 years, is known as CLUSA, no? An organization that has over 100 years and is the cooperative apex organization in the US, but also doing international work since the late 50s. So if you want to find out more, that's the NCBA CLUSA Co-op. You can find out more about NCBA CLUSA. And right now I'm just presenting about one of the tools that we developed. Thanks to, we improved it thanks to AMEA's funding. So thank you again to AMEA for helping us with improving a tool that we had developed under the Cooperative Development Program that is USA funded. we were implementing a project that was called creating an environment for cooperative expansion that ended last year. And this was one of the tools that we developed, because you will see why we developed this tool later. But now, what is this tool? Is the Women Inclusion, Empowerment, and Leadership in Cooperatives. And it's focused on cooperatives, of course, but it's many, a big part of the content is relevant to other producer organizations. So we see blended learning, not just in person and virtual, no, like bringing the virtual into the in-person or a mix of both. We see blended learning as using different mediums to reach the people who we hope can, build knowledge together, no? And so our approach to blended learning in this case is especially using videos as very powerful tools, but also the value of course, we know how important the guides and the slides are for trainers of trainers, but also providing trainers of trainers with handouts. So in this case, the blended is also the very important handwriting that, as we have discussed in this, with these panel participants before, it's coming back, is receiving renewed attention, no? How important handwriting is for actual learning. And so this Trainer of Trainers guide is available in different languages, and I'm going to discuss a little more now. So next slide, please. What the content is, and you can see that it has one introductory module for trainers, no? So this is how the trainers, as Peter was saying, is very important, no? To make sure that the trainers are prepared to be trainers. And so that's a very introductory module, but very important around facilitation skills and adult education skills, no? And then the actual content of this TOT guide is 5 modules that it can be done differently depending on the purpose, no, on the organization that is being trained. So of course you need to start from the first module, which is the essentials around what are these organizations and why gender equity is part of the cooperative identity, no? Sometimes you need to start from that, and that makes people open their eyes, and they are sensitized on why they need to be part of this training, no? And then the second module is to show from practical experiences about identifying barriers to women inclusion in this cooperative, to women leadership, and to women empowerment in these cooperatives and other organizations, showing actual barriers that have been identified in different cases, and then making the participants reflect on what those barriers might be in their own organizations. Then, depending on the purpose, again, and the organization, you might want to do the third and fourth module. The third one is focused more on like the social aspect and leadership aspects, how women can participate in existing organizations, how they can create their new women-only organizations, and also economic empowerment, so around how to do a business plan and more like how to run a business and how to improve the business of an existing organization and develop new business lines that might be suitable for inclusion of women and or youth, no? And so the last module is about, okay, now that we have discussed all this, what is our commitment to gender equity, no? To including women, allowing women to develop as leaders, no? And to have economic empowerment in these organizations. And so the end result of all these trainings is expected to be a gender action plan to implement this commitment. Next slide, please. So, and now we can watch one of these videos that we developed thanks to AMEA, and it's a good example of the content of this guide. Thanks.
I'll ask you to mute so that the audio can play through mine. Thank you.
Vady zay roa efa nandray andraikitra hoe mila mitady mila miasa mila manampy an'ity vadiko ity any amin'ny resaka fambolena sy fitadiavana vola samihafa. Misy kooperativa zany nanentana anay hoe sao dia hiditra nareo de naka izy no hiditra ao mambra de nefa rehefa nahatsapa izy fa za no tena misehatra atao anatin'ny fiompiana de izy mihitsy no resy lahatra hoe andao ianao no atao mambra.
Rehefa misy hetsika ty anivon'iny io de saika lahilahy daholo no ao anatin'le fitantanana.
Noho ny fahatsapana fa ny fisiana vehivavy tao anatin'ilay kooperativa fototra anankiray nahatonga an zareo hetsika kokoa de resy lahatra ny tany amin'ny fivorimbe fa andao ary ho etsehana ny vehivavy amin'ny alalan'ny fananganana io komity io mba fiaraha-mientan'ny lahy ny vavy no tanjona fa tsy hoe voamiran'ny vehivavy na fiadin-droa ho an'ny vehivavy.
Manana vina ny komity Miralenta hoe vehivavy mandray andraikitra ary maranisa ihany koa anivon'ny komity mpitantanana amin'ny vondrana kooperativa roa mba hampiroborobo ny resaka famokarana ronono.
Tanjona ny vehivavy any kooperativa fototra 300 isan-jato de ny vehivavy mamonjy azea 500 isan-jato de ny voameram-panaramaso 700 isan-jato.
Kooperativa fototra anay moa zany 340 de tao amin'ny rahatin'ireo 340 reo ny anankefatra amin'ireo efa mihoatra ny 50% ny isan'ny vehivavy ao anatiny. De rehefa natao ny fifaninanana de ireo kooperativa maro vehivavy reo no efatra tafiditra zany hoe mbola nanamarika ihany zany hatreto fa le maro vehivavy mihetsiketsika kokoa mahavaly kritera kokoa zany amin'ny zavatra tadiavina.
Ny zavatra hita zany hoe rehefa miasa ny voameran'ny Miralenta de misy ny vehivavy samy mijoro samy maneho ny heviny izy mivokatra tsara azo sao de sy ny vehivavy miditra ho mambra de kooperativa 240 misy komity mpitantana zany ao anatin'ny kooperativa fototra miditra ao anatin'ny birao.
Afa-po zay satria maro ihany koa fiofanana azo mitraikefa voka-dronono aza mitombo noho le fiofanana ihany koa ny raisina avy any amin'ny Miralenta de mampitombo ihany koa ny fari-piainanay.
Ny faniriako zany de mbo hampitombo ny isan'ny omby mbo betsaka ny voka-dronono mbo hampitombo ny fiarikarenako satria efa tafitako ny zanako de mbo hitsinjo ny hoavitry indray
Thank you, Casey. And there are tens of these videos subtitled with different subtitles, and I just wanted to share a few more ideas. So next slide, please, Casey. And this is why, because we know there are many gender equity training tools, and so why did we decide to create this new tool? And the first thing is that we had seen that many of the gender training tools we had seen were starting from the human rights approach, which we agree is very important. We wanted to start differently while acknowledging, of course, we need to advance human rights of women and everyone. But we started from focusing on what women can contribute to these organizations. And as you can see in the video, actually production increases and the livelihoods improve when women are involved in these producer organizations. And so that's a different approach of this gender training tool, while we deal, of course, with the human rights aspects and also gender violence, etc. We want to start from the positive that can bring to the organizations. And also that another difference is this focus on identification of barriers, no? So we know organizations are interested, everyone is interested, but okay, what is preventing women from being members, no? It's going beyond like social norms and culture, things that are very hard to change. What can concretely can be done? So to identify actionable barriers, no, that can be eliminated or diminished. And then having this action plan be like the main goal of this training, no? It needs to materialize in some concrete commitment and some actions to increase participation of women in these organizations. Also, of course, we want to highlight the value of this blended learning. I think we know that one video says, you know, one image says much more than many words, written words, and so even spoken words. And so we feel that these videos are like the second best to having these people do like it's called like an exchange visit, no? It's like visiting these organizations that are portrayed in the videos and them learning from this experience of these organizations. And so, of course, the flexible modular approach allows the guide to be used for different purposes. Next and last slide, please. Okay, and this is to highlight that by using this tool, we were actually able to increase participation of women in membership by 62% in around less than 3 years. And so in the organizations we work, which were around 50 in Africa and Latin America, and that in leadership, as you saw, we didn't track the actual data, but we saw a significant increase in women participation in leadership too. So next and last, so why the importance of this blended learning? You know, we know those who have studied education, you know that there are different types of learners. And so this blended learning approach allows us to reach the different learners in ways that are most effective. As I mentioned, videos are powerful and great ways to start discussions. The handouts, as I mentioned, are an opportunity for handwriting, which is very important for the students, the participants, to process information and retain information. And lastly, trainers, no, because this guide is developed for trainers of training of trainers. Trainers appreciate having different options to convey key messages. And that's it. Thank you so much. And happy to answer. Of course. And if you want to download the Wilcoop TOT, there you can go and download it. Thanks again.
Great. Thanks, everyone. You know, we have about 15 minutes left, so we'll take some time to have a little bit of a discussion as a panel across these 5 questions, but also we've received a question in the chat, and if anyone else has questions, do feel free to add them to the Q&A function, and we'll make some time to get to them throughout the last 15 minutes here. But to start off, you know, this first question, you've all have shared a number of lessons learned. You've all talked about blended learning approaches, challenges, and so on. Maybe some reflections on outcomes. And that really goes with the first question that was asked in the chat, in the Q&A here, which is how do you track learning progress among the farmers? That's one form of outcome. Another form of outcome may be the scope insight assessment that you were discussing, Peter, that NURU has worked with extensively as well. Another outcome for Camilla is noted is increased women's participation. So maybe other outcomes that you didn't present on, especially as it relates to how blended learning can help amplify agribusiness development in your experience. I'll open it up to whoever comes off mute first. So whoever has the quickest finger can answer first.
Let me go. In terms of tracking, and that question, comes up several times. And the good news is when you have participants, learning in a blended way, which means they are taking courses online, but they're also being coached. When they're taking courses online, the learning management system, the one we use, is able to give you very deep analytics in terms of who is learning, when did they learn, what quizzes did they take, how did they perform on the quiz, which ones did they not pass, why. You can drill it down to that. So when it comes even to supporting them, then the support is very targeted and guided, and you can also pull out customizable reports from the system. So that's one. And then when you go blended, you're able to cut on a lot of costs when it comes to logistics, and by reducing cost of training in that way, we are able to reach out to more people who would otherwise be left out. And scope assessments helps to make the training very targeted. Yeah.
No, thanks, Peter. Camilla, Amy, did you have anything you wanted to add there?
Amy, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think a big part of it is using the blended learning to build the local ecosystem too, and the capacities of the trainers and the coaches. So like when you're, really like when you're using the blended learning, especially the digital, those trainers and coaches who like learn to work with that, that's improving their skills as well, and their marketable skills. And then they're, that other layer of like the professional BDS providers in the region, going beyond like what they can do in person to help develop this whole other digital skill set.
Thanks, Amy.
Yeah, no, maybe to add that how to track the progress, the e-learning management systems have a way to see how much students have completed the content, and to see there are quizzes that can be done at the beginning and at the end of each session to see how much information students have learned. And in terms of the practical application of that new knowledge, of course, it happens outside the learning space or like that time period. So I think that's when projects needs to make sure they have the right indicators to track the impact of these capacity development efforts.
Yeah, those are all great points. Thanks, Camille. One thing I've been thinking about a lot in our work at NURU and in partnership with all of you through AMEA is connecting the outcome-based evaluation for capacity development like Scope Insight to learning pathways that are purely in person, blended versus digital, and trying to compare that across similar samples of cooperatives or agri-SMEs to get a sense of where if there is that bump, right, in outcome-based capacity development, which I think we all see, because there's also the spillover into other areas of agribusiness and agricultural development from the access and engagement and bridging the digital divide, as you all just described in your presentations, of being able to bring these tools to rural farmers in the places they live and work. So it's an interesting concept that definitely could use a lot more discussion, and even some other areas of improvement that I think we can all keep talking about in AMEA, and welcome everyone else to join that conversation. The second question I'm going to throw to you, Peter. You've mentioned it a few times, you touched on it. It's really about overcoming redundancy and an effort to overcome higher software costs. You touched on this a few times. So I wanted to give you a chance to directly address that question again here.
I think for me, the keyword is share. And when we started this work, Emmy is laughing. We didn't even have the idea of sharing, and then we came all this way and we realized we are leaving so many of us behind in the sector and yet the demand is going up every day, and the clients are demanding blended. And we decided, you know what, why not make it like, you know, Uber for BDS? And instead of competing with every BDS provider, share the platform and figure out a revenue share model. And I can tell you, we have shown you the number of countries we have onboarded. This is work that is not past, 2 months. The onboarding process, but the excitement in the sector is just beyond our imagination. Every BDS provider is so ready to be onboarded. And this is very exciting. And so for me, it's just share platforms, share content, share certified professionals, share everything. And I think what we are finding, and then something we hadn't actually even thought about, what we are seeing is by sharing, we are being able to generate so much business for all of us, and being able to scale. And scaling and cutting costs is a two-way traffic. The more people you have, the more you push the cost down, and the more you push the cost down, the more people you have. And it's very exciting, Casey. So just say share, and don't be afraid of sharing, because it's magical.
That's a great point. Nothing else to add there, of course. Or share. And then Camilla, I wanted to give you a chance. With the Wheel Co-op implementation across multiple geographies, I'm sure that you came across numerous barriers and challenges to the inclusion of women in more membership and leadership roles, and anything that you can sort of speak to, practically, or anecdotes you're able to share on those experiences in rolling that blended learning curriculum out.
Yes, so the way we use this TOT guide, was as part of the project that I mentioned. Is a cooperative development program funded project that just ended, and we have a new iteration, like a follow-on to that project that we are implementing now. And we are using it again, because now we have more time, now that we have the tool. And of course, we are improving it, because you need to improve. Everything is continuous improvement. So now we want to have better graphic design, so that is more attractive, the slides, the handouts, the actual guide, but especially the slides. And so the impact of this is, for example, we were working in Kenya with an organization, I don't want to mention the name, that had no women in any of their governance bodies. By the first year, one of the women was elected to the surveillance, like the internal control committee. By the second year, she was the part of the deputy chair of the board. By the third year, she was actually the chair of the board, and the number of women in that organization in the leadership went from 0 to 5, in 3 years. And that was like close to 50% of the leadership, And so I think it's like the key or the secret sauce of this is identifying what the barriers are. And sometimes the barriers are very, practical and material. Like you need to have, pay your membership share, that is this amount, and women don't have that amount. And so just by having loans that, that the credit union can provide, or in order to be a member, like the membership criteria, also you need to have land, but the land is owned by the husband or the male in the family. And so it's just by addressing these barriers, you can see a lot of progress. I don't know.
That's perfect. I mean, that last point too of identifying the barriers that are unique and locally relevant to that cooperative and to that community is the way around them, not just speaking about general barriers, right? Thus, the action plan is unique to them. I think that's an incredibly important point to helping to push more inclusion, greater inclusion. Thank you for sharing
And
that.
I think
ahead.
this logic can be addressed not to every problem, but like many of the capacity strengthening, areas depend. You first need to sensitize people on the importance of that improvement, no? And showing results. Why is positive results for the organization and themselves as individuals and families. But then once people want to see change, then you need to see, okay, what is preventing this change from happening, no? And so I think it's applicable to any area of improvement, yeah.
No, totally. That's been our experience at Neuro as well, across capacity strengthening with cooperatives. And I think in any sort of development work, that's a really important point. With this fourth question, I'm gonna call on each of you, or you can abstain, it's up to you. But to quickly respond with like, what's the one thing or one of the things that you think is needed to deliver blended BDS at scale? Peter said share, but Amy, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it goes to that last question on the screen there too. You have to make sure that you have the infrastructure, the technology, and that's in a consideration, right? So in implementing the blended learning in remote areas, you have to make sure, you make it available somehow through, offline means, or like you make sure they have the access. You create, and I think Nuru has experience with this, creating a hub, right, where people can go, right, to access digital learning. I mean, if you don't have that, like if you don't have the systems, the infrastructure in place to make it available, then you're not going to be able to do anything at scale. And but just to affirm too what Peter said, yeah, absolutely. I think that's the sharing idea cannot be emphasized enough. We have, like IFC has created, put the time, the resources into creating this content. An organization like Africa Turnaround has come to us and asked for it. And yeah, as a member of AMEA, they can access it. And now they're making it more available, as you saw, through the UT platform. So I think it's those networks, the sharing, but also, keep on with to dismantling the barriers to access.
Yeah, infrastructure is such a key point. And you mentioned our work at Nuru. I mean, you already brought up in your presentation the TVET approach in Kenya with a digital hub. In Ethiopia, our approach has been to leverage the union structures, similarly to what Camilla presented with Wheel Co-op, as a central point for digital learning, like a physical safe space to go engage with hardware. Software sharing is one thing. There's also an element of hardware sharing that's important here to note too, where it makes it more affordable. So we talk about the sharing of on the software side of things, but it equates to a physical safe learning space on a hardware side too, that is so important not to forget when reaching harder to reach places. And finding an institution that can provide that governance structure around it. Cooperatives play such a great role in that, is one way to do it. We're gonna run out of time. There's more we could talk about. Does anyone have any last words or parting thoughts other than myself? So Camilla, Peter, Amy, before we close out. Well, thank you all so much. We're doing our best to end on time. Thank you, Amy, Camilla, and Peter, for your presentations today. Thank you for those who stayed with us for the full hour. And if you're still listening on recording, thank you too. And I guess we'll end the session here.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks all. Thanks, Casey and AMEA.